From the very beginning, Clara's world was wrapped in warmth. Her earliest memories were not of toys or cartoons, but of her parents laughing in the kitchen of their Victoria Island home. Her father's deep, booming laugh. Her mother's softer, musical giggle. They would dance while waiting for the kettle to boil, feet sliding across sleek tiles, her father spinning her mother like they were on some invisible stage. "Come and join us, star girl," her dad would say. And little Clara, pudgy-cheeked and bright-eyed, would wobble into the space between them, tiny feet trying to copy their steps. Her mother would clap, her father would lift her in the air, and for a moment everything else, meetings, boardrooms, responsibilities, simply disappeared. In those moments there were only 3 of them, a little family that felt like the whole world. Both her parents were CEOs. Not of small companies either, but of powerful firms on Victoria Island. Sharp glass buildings that touched the sky and glittered at night. People respected them, feared them, admired them. But at home they were just mum and dad, the ones who tucked her in and kissed her forehead and asked about her day. "Never let anyone make you feel small," her mother would tell her, smoothing lotion into her skin after her evening bath. "You are more than enough, just as you are." Her father would nod, adjusting his tie in the mirror. "Your mind is your greatest asset, Clara. Your heart is next. The rest," he'd wave a hand. "The rest is just packaging." Clara believed them. How could she not? As Clara grew older, that confidence stayed with her. She was never the slimmest girl in her class, and she knew it. But when she looked in the mirror, she liked what she saw. Round cheeks, a soft jawline, full hips, strong thighs. She had a body that took up space, and she was not ashamed of it. Her favorite thing about herself, though, was her hair. Loud. Her afro defied gravity and expectations both. When she was in S1, one of her classmates whispered, "Your hair is a lot." Clara had turned to her and smiled. "Thank you," she said, like it was the greatest compliment in the world. From then on, her afro was not just hair. It was her signature, her statement. When she walked through the halls, people recognized her first by that crown of curls, then by the fierce confidence in her eyes. "Ah, Afro Queen," her friend Jessica would say, flinging an arm around her shoulders. "Afro Princess a beg," Joseph would add, rolling his eyes. Don't let her head swell. But it already had, in the best way. At home, her parents continued to shape her. By JSS 3, she had visited both their offices multiple times. She had watched her mother in a boardroom full of men, quiet for the first 10 minutes, then calmly shredding a weak argument with statistics and a raised brow. She had seen her father put an arm around a stressed employee's shoulder and say, "Go home. Rest. Work will wait. Your health won't." They were powerful, but they were kind. They were respected, but they were human. "Business is people," her father told her one evening as they drove past the glow of streetlights and the dark edge of the ocean. "Numbers are important, yes. But people are everything." Her mother added, "Never chase success so hard that you stop chasing yourself." Clara stored their words somewhere deep inside like precious stones. Years passed. Secondary school gave way to university. University gave way to her early 20s. Clara studied business and management not because she was forced to, but because she genuinely loved the way companies worked. How ideas turned into products and products turned into impact. Her parents' company became her favorite topic of study. She'd sit with them at the dining table, laptop open, asking question after question. "What was your first big risk? When did you almost give up? How do you decide who to trust?" They answered, sometimes teasing, sometimes serious, but always open. They had built something huge and powerful, and they wanted her to understand not just how to run it but why it mattered. By the time she was 24, everyone in the office already knew her. Even before she officially joined, she would drop by on Fridays, wearing high-waisted trousers, a neatly tucked blouse, and her flawless afro, greeting staff by name. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Adu. How are your twins, David? Did they fix the AC on the 3rd floor?" People smiled when they saw her. She was her parents' daughter, but also very clearly her own person. Then her parents retired. It didn't happen overnight. Started with small hints. "I'm thinking of more quiet mornings," her mother said one day, stirring her tea. "I'm tired of traffic," her father added with a sigh. "Let younger knees handle Lagos roads." Clara laughed, thinking it was just talk. Until it wasn't. They called her into the sitting room one evening. TV was off. The air felt serious. Her father cleared his throat. "Clara." Her mother reached for her hand. "We've been talking." Clara's heart skipped. "Okay." "We want to step down," her mother said gently. "Not disappear but slow down. Life, travel, rest. And we want you," her father said, eyes soft but firm, "to take over as CEO." The room went silent, except for the hum of the air conditioner. "Me," Clara breathed. Her father chuckled. "Who else? You've been shadow running this company since you were 19. Her mother squeezed her fingers. "You're ready. And if you ever feel like you're not, we'll be here. But this is your time, star girl." Tears pricked Clara's eyes, but she blinked them away and smiled instead. "I won't let you down," she said. "We know," they replied in unison. Stepping into that role felt both terrifying and natural. On her first official day as CEO, she stood in front of the tall glass windows of her corner office and watched the city breathe. Cars crawled along the roads. People hurried along sidewalks. The sea shimmered in the distance. All of it, this whole living, moving world, felt connected to the decisions she'd make in that office. She took a deep breath and sat down. Her calendar filled up quickly. Strategy meetings, investor calls, staff briefings. She handled them with a calm face, even when her heart raced. With every month that passed, the company grew steadier, stronger. People began to associate the company not just with her parents' names, but with hers. "Madam CEO," they would say with a smile. She still wore her afro. She still wore outfits that hugged her thick body in ways she liked. She still looked in the mirror and recognized herself. For a while everything was good. Like everyone else her age, Clara spent time online. She didn't have much free time, but she loved scrolling in the evenings, watching funny videos, reading business articles, or occasionally replying to messages from people who admired her work. That was how she first noticed Paul. He wasn't a stranger exactly. He was one of those people who seemed to exist everywhere on her timeline, commenting on her posts, replying to her stories, dropping small, witty remarks that made her smile. "CEO with the Afro," he once wrote under a picture of her at a conference. Dangerous combo. She had laughed when she read it. Over time, they graduated from public comments to private messages. He was intelligent, charming, and interesting. He talked about books, music, tech, and Lagos traffic like a seasoned survivor. He complimented her mind and her work. "You're inspiring, Clara," he'd say. Honestly. She found herself looking forward to his messages, checking her phone in between meetings, smiling at something he said long after she'd put her phone down. And then one day, after months of talking, he wrote, "We've talked for so long online. It's about time we met in person, don't you think?" Clara's heart did a small flip. She stared at the message for a few seconds, then typed back, "Sure. Let's do it." As she pressed send, she had no idea that this simple decision, to meet a man who had made her laugh through a screen, would be the beginning of a chapter that would test everything she believed about herself. Clara didn't usually get nervous before meetings. Not board meetings, not investor dinners, not speaking engagements. But as she drove to meet Paul for the first time, she noticed that familiar tightness in her chest. Not fear, just anticipation, curiosity, the feeling of stepping into something new. They had agreed to meet at a quiet cafe in Lekki. Neutral ground, relaxed, simple. When she walked in, her afro framed her face like a soft halo, and the afternoon sun filtered through the blinds, catching on her earrings. She scanned the room until she saw him standing up from one of the tables. "Clara," he called, smiling widely. He looked almost exactly like he did online. Tall, clean haircut, well-dressed in a way that was stylish without trying too hard. His smile was bright, confident. "You look even better in person," he said as she approached. Clara laughed lightly. That's a good start. They sat. The conversation flowed easily at first. They talked about their favorite Lagos restaurants, the chaos of traffic, shows they liked, books they never finished. He cracked jokes. She teased him back. Felt light, warm, normal. For a moment, Clara thought, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this is finally something for me. And then Paul said, in a tone so subtle it barely registered, "You're beautiful, but you know, you'd look even more stunning with a different hairstyle." Clara paused mid-sip. He gestured vaguely around his own head. "Like straight bundles or maybe loose curls. I think they'd suit your face more." She blinked. "My afro suits me just fine." He smiled, as if she hadn't spoken with any real conviction. "Of course. I'm just saying you'd look really amazing. But it's just my taste." Just his taste. Small comment. Easy to ignore. Easy to dismiss. Clara let it slide. After the date, she drove home replaying the conversation. Jokes. The chemistry. The small comment. She told herself it wasn't a big deal. Everyone had preferences, right? And it wasn't as if he had said she looked bad. He just liked something different. It's fine, she told herself. People comment on my hair all the time. Still, something in her stomach felt unsettled. They started talking more frequently. Voice notes, occasional dinners when Clara could escape work early. And with every conversation, Clara found herself liking him more. His intelligence, his humor, the way he seemed impressed by her leadership. But gradually the comments continued. "You know you'd look slimmer in high-waisted jeans. You should try wearing less bold colors, something more classy. Your makeup is a bit much today. I prefer natural. You'd look perfect if you lost just a little weight. Not a lot. Just a bit." He always said it softly, casually, like he was doing her a favor. Like he was helping. At first, Clara didn't think she was changing. She didn't feel pressured. She told herself she was just trying new things. So she straightened her hair once. Then again. Then again. She bought wigs she didn't care for. She switched her bold lipsticks for muted tones. She stopped eating late dinners. Then she stopped eating lunch. Then she stopped eating anything after 6 p.m. She told herself it was just self-improvement. But her friends saw something she couldn't. Jessica and Joseph had known Clara longer than anyone. Before the CEO role, before the bold Instagram pictures, before the immaculate meetings. They knew the girl who danced at break time, who ran through school corridors with her shoes half worn, who laughed with her whole chest. So when they saw her walking into the restaurant that afternoon, their conversation stopped. Jessica leaned forward, whispering, "She's shrinking." Joseph sighed. "And not just physically." Clara approached their table, smiling brightly. But her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Her shoulders seemed tense, her movements careful. Even her afro was gone, replaced by a long, sleek wig that looked expensive but wrong on her. "You guys are whispering about me," Clara said, sliding into her seat. "Because we're worried," Jessica replied honestly. Clara frowned. "About what?" "You," Joseph said. "Everything about you feels different." Clara let out a small laugh. "I'm just trying new styles." Jessica raised a brow. "Since when do you change for anyone?" "I'm not changing for anyone," Clara said quickly, maybe too quickly. It's not a big deal." Jessica reached across the table, touched her hand gently. "Clara, we know you. And this isn't the you we grew up with." Clara stiffened. "You're overreacting." "Are we?" Joseph asked gently. "Because you don't seem happy." Clara looked away. Her throat felt tight. "I'm fine," she insisted. "I'm just busy. Work is a lot." Jessica and Joseph exchanged a look but didn't push any further. They knew Clara well enough to know that she only listened after thinking things through on her own time. But the seed had been planted. In the weeks that followed, Clara became more aware of the changes she had made. How her natural hair products were gathering dust. How her gym visits had turned from fun to anxiety. How she skipped meals without thinking. How she avoided mirrors on certain days. How she felt tense, always tense, around Paul. He didn't shout or insult her. He didn't threaten or force her. But his quiet disapproval felt like a shadow, always there, always judging. When she wore something she liked, he'd say, not your best look. When she ordered something she enjoyed, he'd murmur, you know that's heavy, right? When she posted an Afro picture from the past, he'd write, you look better with wigs, babe. Trust me. And Clara wanted peace. She wanted to be loved. She wanted the relationship to work. So she kept bending, twisting, shrinking. She didn't notice how exhausting it had become, how it seeped into her mornings, her meetings, her decision-making. Her team began to notice her quietness. Her assistant once asked if she was feeling unwell. No, Clara said. Just tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of trying. Tired of molding herself. But she still didn't leave. Not yet. One evening they were on a video call. Paul looked at her for a long moment before saying, you know, if you really want to look your best, surgery could help. Just small adjustments. A lift here, some shaping there. Nothing drastic. Clara stared at him, stunned. Surgery, she repeated. Relax. It's normal now. Lots of people do it, he said casually. You could look perfect. Perfect. The word hit her like a punch. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. Never let anyone make you feel small. Her father's voice followed. Your mind is your greatest asset. The rest is just packaging. And suddenly she realized. This wasn't love. This was a slow erasing of herself. She took a deep breath and said the word she hadn't said to him before. No. He blinked. No. No, she repeated firmly. This is too much. He laughed lightly, as if she was being dramatic. Clara, I'm just trying to help you. No, she said again. You're trying to change me. He fell silent. And for the first time she saw surprise. Real surprise on his face. I'm done, she said quietly. I'm choosing myself. And she ended the call. That night, Clara sat alone in her living room, her wig lying on the table beside her. She touched her natural hair, soft, thick, familiar. Her reflection looked back at her, tired but clear-eyed. For the first time in months she breathed deeply. And it wasn't painful. It was relief. Clara woke the next morning with a quiet stillness in her chest. Not excitement. Not sadness. Just the kind of calm that comes after a storm passes, even when you're still surrounded by broken branches. Her phone buzzed repeatedly. Calls, texts, voice notes from Paul. She didn't open any of them. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel that invisible pressure on her shoulders. She walked into her bathroom, switched on the light, and stared at her reflection. Her afro was messy from sleep. Her eyes were tired. But beneath that, she saw something familiar. There you are, she thought. She reached for her hair pick and gently teased out the curls. The movement felt almost ceremonial, like reclaiming something she hadn't realized she'd given away. When she finished, her afro was full and bold again. She smiled at herself, small but real. The next few days weren't easy. Healing never is. Even though she had broken things off, she still heard Paul's voice in her mind at random moments. When she opened her wardrobe, she remembered the hairstyles he said he preferred. When she glanced at her lunch break salad, she remembered the quiet disapproval in his eyes. Are you sure you want to eat that? She tried to shake it off. Sometimes she succeeded. Sometimes she didn't. Healing is messy that way. At work she stumbled through her days. She wasn't unfocused exactly, just internally occupied. Her assistant Adeora noticed. Ma'am, are you okay? She asked one afternoon after Clara forgot a meeting. Clara hesitated. She didn't want to open the floodgates. Yes, just tired. Adeora nodded, but not in the convinced way. Well, if you need anything, or if you just need breathing space, we've got things covered. Clara appreciated that. The kindness, the lack of pressure. Her parents noticed too. Her mother invited her over for dinner. When Clara walked in, her mother gave her that searching look mothers always seem to perfect. "Sit," her mother said softly. And before Clara even opened her mouth, tears filled her eyes. She didn't cry loudly. She didn't break down dramatically. She just let the tears fall while her mother held her hand. When she finally spoke, it was a whisper. "I disappeared, Mum." Her mother didn't interrupt, didn't lecture, didn't say "I told you so." She simply squeezed Clara's fingers. "You found yourself again. That's what matters." Her father, overhearing from the doorway, added, "And the version of you that you found. She's extraordinary." Hearing that felt like breathing clean air after months underground. A few days later, Clara visited an old photo album her father kept in the study. He loved printed photos, said they were memories you could touch. She flipped through pictures of herself at different ages. Clara at age 5 in her tiny green school uniform. Clara at 10 with beads woven into her hair. Clara at 15 smiling with braces. Clara at 17, carrying her afro proudly despite school rules. Clara at 20 graduating, cheeks full and glowing. Clara at 23, laughing with Jessica and Joseph under a tree. In every picture she looked different, but she looked like her. When did I stop seeing that girl as enough? She wondered. She closed the album gently, feeling both sadness and strength. A mixture of regret and resolve. Something inside shifted. She wasn't going backward to who she used to be. She was moving forward, toward a version of herself that was wiser and much harder to shake. After a week of silence, Paul sent a long message. "You're overreacting. I was only trying to help." Clara read it once, then again. Instead of replying, she let out a long, steady breath. She didn't owe him an argument. She didn't owe him justification. Her growth didn't need his approval. She blocked his number, not out of anger but out of self-respect. Sometimes peace is loud like a shout. Sometimes peace is silent, like a door closing softly. Clara decided to take a day off work. Real one. No emails, no calls, no responsibilities. She went for a morning walk on a quiet stretch of beach. No makeup, no fancy clothes, no performance. Just Clara. The sea breeze tangled in her hair. Her skirt fluttered around her legs. Children played not far away, their laughter turning the air warm. She sat on a rock, toes buried in warm sand. For the first time in months, she felt completely present. She whispered to the ocean, "I'm enough." A quiet certainty washed over her. I'm enough. Enough in body. Enough in mind. Enough in heart. Enough without approval. Enough without validation. Healing wasn't immediate, but it was happening. Later that week, Jessica and Joseph invited her out, not to interrogate her or lecture her, but simply to be with her. When she arrived at Jessica's house, they both grinned and applauded dramatically. "Ladies and gentlemen," Joseph announced, "the Afro has returned." Clara burst out laughing. This time the laughter was free and full. They ordered suya and small chops, sat on the floor like teenagers, and talked about everything except Paul. They talked about school memories, silly teachers, embarrassing crushes, dreams they didn't even know they still had. It reminded Clara of who she was before the noise. It reminded her that love didn't feel like pressure, it felt like ease. As the night grew quiet, Jessica looked at her gently. "You look lighter," she said. Clara took a deep breath. "I feel lighter." Joseph raised his drink. "To choosing yourself," he said. Clara clinked her glass against theirs. "To choosing myself," she echoed. Returning to the office felt different now. Her steps were firmer. Her voice was clearer. Her decisions sharper. Staff noticed. Investors noticed. Even Adaora smiled knowingly. "Welcome back, ma'am," she said one morning. Clara didn't argue. Didn't brush it off. "Thank you," she replied. "It's good to be back." And it truly was. Her ideas began flowing again. She introduced new strategies, approved innovative proposals, and handled meetings with renewed clarity. She wasn't performing anymore. She was leading. Her confidence wasn't loud or aggressive. It was steady, authentic, rooted. One evening, after wrapping up a productive day, Clara found herself at her favorite bar. Not for escape, not out of loneliness, but simply because she wanted to enjoy a drink alone. She ordered her favorite mocktail and sat by the window, watching city lights blink like stars fallen to earth. She wore her afro. She wore her confidence. She wore herself. And for the first time in a long while, she felt whole. She didn't know that this simple choice, to step into a bar already full and content, would change the direction of her life once again. She didn't know someone kind, unexpected, and gentle was about to walk into her evening. But that was a story for another chapter. Clara wasn't looking for anything that night. Not love. Not companionship. Not attention. She had gone to her favorite bar simply because it felt familiar. Comfortable. It was a place where she could sit alone without feeling lonely, where the soft jazz in the background calmed her thoughts, and where the dim lights made the world feel slower and kinder. She took a seat by the window, ordered her usual mocktail, and let the quiet settle around her. Her afro framed her face in its full glory, catching the light with every movement. She wore a simple blouse tucked into high-waisted trousers, nothing extravagant, nothing curated for anyone's approval, just clothes she loved. She sighed, a soft breath of contentment, and allowed herself to enjoy the stillness. She didn't notice the man walking in. Not at first. He entered the bar with an easy, relaxed gait. Someone who didn't rush, didn't force himself into spaces, didn't demand attention. He nodded to the bartender, greeted a couple of regulars, then scanned the room as if searching for an available seat. His eyes landed on Clara. Not with shock. Not with that overly intense stare some people gave when they meant to flatter themselves. Just a look of appreciation. Gentle, respectful, almost surprised. He hesitated for a moment, then walked toward her. Clara looked up as his shadow stretched across her table. "Hi," he said, offering a polite smile. "Is this seat taken?" Clara shook her head. "Not at all." He sat, leaving a comfortable amount of space between them. He didn't lean too close, didn't hover, didn't force conversation. For a moment he just looked at the menu. Then, without looking up, he said casually, "You look really beautiful, by the way." Clara huffed a small laugh. Compliments no longer carried the same weight they used to. Not the way they had when she was trying so hard to be liked. "Thank you," she said, tone light. "That's kind of you." He finally looked up, studying her expression for a moment. Not in a judging way, but as if he wanted to make sure she knew he was sincere. "I mean it," he added simply. She raised a skeptical brow. "You're not just saying that to break the ice." "No," he said with a soft chuckle. "It's not a pickup line. It's just a fact." Clara blinked, taken aback not by boldness but by the softness, the lack of pressure, the lack of expectation. She wasn't used to this. After a few minutes, they slipped into conversation. He introduced himself as Emmanuel. "Most people call me Manny," he said, scratching the back of his neck with a shy smile. He worked in tech, mostly remote, which explained his calm, almost unhurried energy. They talked about Lagos weather, their favorite foods, the music playing overhead. Simple things. Ordinary things. But the conversation flowed with an effortlessness that Clara hadn't felt in months. At one point, Manny tilted his head thoughtfully. "I've seen you around here a few times," he said. "You always look like you're thinking deeply about something." Clara smiled. "Occupational hazard. CO stress," he guessed. Her brows shot up. "How'd you know?" "The way you carry yourself," he said. "People who lead tend to sit with their backs straight, even when they're trying to relax." Clara laughed softly. "Maybe." He shrugged lightly. "Either way, you have a presence. A good one." Something warm flickered in her chest. Not the dizzying rush of infatuation she once mistook for affection, but quiet appreciation. He wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't trying to modify her. He wasn't trying to mold her. He was simply talking to her. The longer they spoke, the more Clara observed him. He didn't interrupt. He didn't dominate the conversation. He didn't steer topics toward himself. When she mentioned her afro and how much she loved it, Manny's reaction was immediate and natural. "It suits you perfectly," he said with a thoughtful nod. "It feels you." Clara's heart tensed for a moment, not from hurt but from memory. She thought about Paul, about his subtle criticism, about how her afro had become something she hid to make someone else comfortable. "You really think so?" she asked quietly. He looked surprised she even needed to ask. "Absolutely." There was no hesitation. No silent judgment hiding beneath the words. Just truth. For a moment, Clara didn't reply. She just sipped her mocktail, letting the atmosphere settle. "Do you go to the gym?" she asked casually. "Sometimes," Manny replied. "Not for weight loss or anything. Mostly for stress relief. I like moving my body. It helps my mind settle." Clara tapped her glass. "I used to enjoy the gym. Then it got complicated." Manny didn't pry. He didn't press. He simply said, "When you're ready, you'll find your way back to the things you love." Clara looked at him, then really looked at him. And something inside her sank peacefully. This man wasn't trying to create a version of her he preferred. He wasn't leading her toward some idealized image. He wasn't hinting she needed to be more or less. He was simply present. A steady, gentle presence. Hours passed without either of them noticing. The bar lights dimmed a little as the night grew older. The jazz changed to softer notes. At some point, Clara caught herself smiling, really smiling, without thinking about how she looked or how her hair fell or whether she seemed enough. And for the first time in a long while, she realized. She felt safe. Not swept off her feet. Not unsettled. Not anxious. Just safe. Manny checked the time and chuckled. "Wow. I didn't mean to keep you this long." "You didn't keep me," Clara replied. "I stayed." He nodded, accepting that answer with quiet respect. Before he left, he said one more thing, gentle, straightforward. "If you ever want to talk again, or even just sit in the same space without talking, that's fine too." He didn't ask for her number. He didn't demand anything. But he left room. Possibility. A gentle invitation. Clara surprised herself. She offered her number first. "Here," she said, placing her phone on the table for him. "In case you ever want to talk again." His smile was warm, not triumphant. "Thank you, Clara." And with that, he left the bar, leaving behind a soft feeling in the air, one that encouraged peace, not performance. As Clara drove home, she rested one hand on her afro, as if grounding herself. She didn't feel the rush of confusion or anxiety she once felt after seeing Paul. She felt balanced, steady, herself. And for the first time she thought, maybe there's a kind of love that feels like ease. Clara didn't expect anything dramatic to happen after that night at the bar. She didn't expect fireworks or destiny, or grand sweeping moments. She wasn't looking for a fairy tale. She was simply living, healing, choosing herself day by day. And that quiet, steady transformation began to change the shape of her entire life. Work became smoother, not because the responsibilities were any lighter, but because she was lighter. Her mind was clear, her boundaries stronger, her decisions more grounded. She stopped trying to be everywhere, stopped trying to be everything, stopped trying to look a certain way to be respected. She led with calm authority, and her staff responded with renewed respect. Even investors commented on the shift in her tone, how she seemed more present, more self-assured, more focused. Clara realized something profound. Confidence wasn't about being loud. It was about being rooted. And she was rooted now, in herself. She returned to her natural hair full-time, not as a rebellion but as reclamation. Her wardrobe reverted to pieces she genuinely loved, not ones chosen to impress anyone. She ate meals without guilt. She exercised because it made her feel strong, not smaller. Her friends noticed. Her parents noticed. She noticed. Manny texted her the evening after they met. Made it home safe. Hope you did too. Good night. No pressure. No expectations. Just genuine consideration. Clara smiled at her phone. Yes, I did. Good night, Manny. Over the next weeks, their conversations grew naturally. Not intense, not overwhelming, not clingy. Just steady. Sometimes they laughed about silly Lagos traffic woes. Sometimes they talked about work stresses and dreams. Sometimes they said very little and simply shared space on a call while both worked. Clara was surprised by how easy it was. How unforced. How peaceful. One Saturday morning, Manny asked, "Want to join me at the gym?" Nothing serious. Just stretching and light movement. Clara hesitated. The gym had become a place tied to pressure and insecurity in her mind. But she trusted his intention. He wasn't asking her to change. He wasn't measuring her. He wasn't evaluating her. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's try." And they did. They walked slowly on side-by-side treadmills, chatting about music. Manny encouraged her gently, without pushing. "Don't rush," he said. "Just move however feels good." For the first time in a long while, the gym felt safe. Not a battlefield. Not a stage. A place for her body to just be. Their favorite bar became a small ritual. Sometimes they met there intentionally. Sometimes they bumped into each other accidentally. Sometimes they sat apart at first, each working or thinking, and later drifted into conversation. They didn't rush into anything. They didn't label anything. They simply allowed things to grow at their own pace. Clara found that refreshing. She wasn't performing. She wasn't shrinking. She wasn't pretending. She was just Clara, and Manny liked her that way. Support, not control. One evening, after a particularly stressful day at work, Clara arrived at the bar feeling drained. Manny noticed immediately. "You look tired," he said, not in judgment but in concern. "Want to talk about it?" And she did. She told him about board pressures, investor demands, and personal expectations she sometimes placed on herself. She spoke freely, without fear of being misunderstood or criticized. When she finished, Manny didn't offer unrealistic solutions. He simply said, "You're doing an incredible job. But don't forget you're allowed to rest. No shoulds. No reshaping. No criticism. Just support." Clara felt something warm expand behind her ribs. Clarity through friendship. Jessica and Joseph met Manny about a month after Clara had begun spending time with him. They watched him closely, not with suspicion but with protectiveness. After dinner, Jessica nudged Clara playfully. "He's calm," she said. "Very calm," Joseph echoed. Clara laughed. "Is that a good thing?" "It's a great thing," Jessica said. "He's not trying to dim you." Joseph nodded. "He lets you be you. That's rare." Clara felt their words settle deeply inside. She trusted her friend's instincts. Always had. It wasn't fireworks that made Clara realize she cared for Manny. It was the accumulation of small moments. The way he listened. The way he never commented on her weight. The way he admired her natural hair. The way he respected her work. The way he didn't try to shape her into anything but herself. One evening, as they sat outside the bar, soft music floating from inside, Manny said quietly, "You seem happier these days." Clara smiled, looking down at her hands. "I am." "Good," he said. "You deserve that." "Thank you," she said. And she meant it. They didn't hold hands. They didn't rush into anything. They simply sat together, letting the moment be enough. It was the gentlest kind of beginning. Months passed, and Clara's life continued to blossom. Her company grew under her leadership. Her friendships deepened. Her relationship with herself became stronger, more compassionate. One night, Clara stood before her mirror, her afro full and proud, her face glowing lightly under the soft bathroom light. She looked at herself, not with judgment, not with doubt, with pride. She whispered, I found myself again. She thought about the girl she used to be. The woman she became. The version of herself she was stepping into. She didn't need anyone to complete her. But she welcomed people who added peace to her life. And Manny did. Not by changing her. Not by fixing her. Not by demanding anything. But by being steady, kind, and respectful. Clara never forgot the hardest part of her journey, the subtle erosion of self-worth. But she no longer saw it with shame. She saw it as proof of her resilience, her rediscovery, her capacity to rise. She learned that love without peace is not love. Love that demands shrinking is not love. Love that reshapes you is control, not care. She also learned something more powerful. A healed woman chooses differently. A healed woman loves differently. A healed woman sees herself clearly. And Clara was healed. Not perfectly, not completely, but beautifully in progress. When Manny walked into her life, she didn't collapse into him. She didn't hand him her worth. She didn't bend herself to match his expectations. She stood firmly, fully, wholly as herself. And he chose her that way. One evening, months after their first meeting, they sat together at the bar again. Not rushed, not nervous, not uncertain. Manny looked at her and said, "I'm glad I met you, Clara." She smiled, warm and genuine. "I'm glad I met you too." Not because she needed him. Not because he filled some empty space. But because choosing herself had created room for people who valued her as she was. Clara took a slow breath, feeling the peace she had earned settling into her bones. Her life wasn't perfect, but it was hers. Her heart wasn't untouched, but it was healing. Her future wasn't fully mapped, but it was bright. She had walked away from a man who saw her as a project, and walked toward herself, toward peace, toward possibility. And that made all the difference. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, kindly give it a thumbs up. Tell us what you think of the story and where you are watching from in the comment. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Share this video with someone who might love it too. And as always, stay safe, stay inspired, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.